The team, we do everything together, from working together, living together, going on movie dates, whatever, eating dates, you know, everything that people do together. I'll just really say that I like the bond. Something about just, you know, trusting them in the middle of the game, or like, you know, having to rely on them really transfers over to like your everyday life.
So the dynamic of the team is very different than a lot of other groups or societies. We are really close-knit, and it's more like a brotherhood, almost like a fraternity, but we play a sport. We'll do anything for each other. We'll help out each other as much as we can.
I was at work and I got a phone call from my roommate Damien, and he said Tryhard's in the hospital and he's really sick.
I got diagnosed with Necrotizing Fasciitis, which is a flesh-eating disease.
To the hospital, and they said he had Necrotizing Fasciitis, which I had no idea what that was at the time, but apparently there was something eating his chest cavity from the inside out.
I had 7 surgeries just to scrape out like the decaying flesh, or cleanse. I had a couple like stomach ulcers from medication and whatnot. So I had to get scoped, like where they put a scope down my throat, probably 3-4 times. I had a breathing tube in, and that's probably the worst thing that you can do to anyone, is put a breathing tube in. You can't talk, you can't eat, you know, you're constantly clenching your jaw on a plastic tube, like in and out of like ICU all the time. Like they couldn't decide whether I did belong in ICU or if I was well enough to go home, but they didn't want to send me home if like I still had stomach bleeding.
So once we figured out what happened to him, I was there directly in the hospital, and grabbed as many people as we could and threw them in cars and started heading down there. When we first got there, there was about 10, 12 of us waiting in a waiting room, just trying to figure out what was going on.
So I was very grateful that my team was there, and it was like looking back at it, that's like amazing. Like I think I set a world record of how many people can fit in a hospital room, you know.
Patiently waited in a waiting room for about 3 hours. More people ended up showing up and all that. So
I don't think my mom really ever left. I think she left obviously to like go get food a couple times. Yeah, so right now I'm the president of the men's rugby club. I've been president for a little over a year. I'm transitioning into coaching for the SCSU women's rugby team. When I first started playing again, it was probably maybe a month and a half, 2 months after I got out of the hospital. Really the biggest downside of being in the hospital was I dropped 20 pounds, so I really was string beanish. I wasn't very strong.
And he wasn't really in any condition to do strenuous physical activity or hit, but about a year later you can see he's really put on a bunch of the weight, a bunch of the muscle, and he's kind of the player that he used to be.
But I've always been a pretty smart player, so I just kind of use the tricks that I had, and overall, I mean, I think I was still a good rugby player.
Now, if you take a look at him now, you could never tell. Still very, very talented player, very good decision maker, and still overall a great athlete.
And then once I got my weight back, just returned to play, like back on top, you know what I'm saying?